Hi everybody, Jaycie Voorhees here from Harmony Music Therapy. I am going to be talking a little bit about how music therapy impacts expressive communication. So how we're able to get kids to say more than they were able to without music. So one of my favorite examples of this was from a boy that I worked with about 5 years ago who was at a school where I was housed, and he was a teenager and had some developmental delays and a lot of difficulty with expressive communication. He was a really sweet kid, and he would come in and say, "Hey, how are you?" and had that initial conversation. But once it got beyond just the greeting, he really struggled to communicate. But I cast him. I put on a school musical and cast him as Captain Hook. And when we started working with him with his lines, we had a speech therapist working with him one-on-one to say his lines, and he wasn't able to get out more than one word at a time. He had one of his lines that we were working on was "Blast that Peter Pan. If I could find his hideout, I'd trap him." And when we presented the first part of the line, "Blast that Peter Pan," he couldn't say it. His body, his brain, his mouth, everything just wasn't working together to be able to say it. And he would only get out one word at a time. So the speech therapist would say, "Blast," and he'd say, "Blast, that, Peter, Peter." And it was very labor intensive for him, and he was getting exhausted with it. So after our first couple practices, I brought him into the music therapy room and put those lines to a rhythm. And I just simply played "Blast that Peter Pan." And putting that to a rhythm, he was suddenly able to say, "Blast that Peter Pan." He put all of those words together, and it was amazing. And I went to the next part. "If I could find his hideout." And he said the whole thing back to me. And we proceeded with that. And he wasn't able to generalize it immediately, but every time we used the rhythm, his body, his brain, his mouth, everything was able to work together to get it out. So whatever was happening for him with language in his brain was strongly impacted by rhythm and by music. And so as we proceeded to practice for that play and go through all of these different lines, the speech therapist would sometimes look to me and say, "Now, what rhythm would you suggest for this one?" Because he wouldn't be able to get some of these lines out. And so I would suggest a rhythm and how to put those words to rhythm. And she would say that to him, and he would be able to get it out. And it was amazing. So it's powerful how rhythm and music can impact speech. For some kids, it makes all the difference. And it definitely did for this boy.